In the beginning, there was chaos. Then, architecture happened. A profession that's as old as civilization itself. Architecture is the art and science of designing buildings and structures. From the pyramids of Giza to the skyscrapers of New York, architecture has always been the physical manifestation of mankind's dreams and ambitions. Fast forward to the modern day, architecture has evolved beyond just bricks and mortar. It's now about sustainable design, digital innovation, and creating spaces that enhance our quality of life. So, why does architecture matter? Well, it's simple really. Architecture is the stage set where life unfolds. It shapes our world, influences our behavior, and reflects our values. In essence, architecture is not just about building structures, it's about building the future. Whether it's a humble home or a towering skyscraper, every architectural marvel tells a story of human ingenuity, creativity, and a relentless pursuit of progress. So, the next time you walk past a building, remember, you're not just looking at a structure, you're looking at a piece of history, a vision of the future, and a testament to the power of human creativity. And welcome, Ms. Judith. I hope you're doing well.
I am. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel really happy to talk about architecture because, it's not something that everyone talks about. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yep. And so with me here, I just have a little introduction about you. So with me here, I have Ms. Judith David, who is the principal architect at Studio Makeshift, as well as the chief design officer at the Conrad store. And I'm really excited to meet her as the first guest on the new podcast of our season, on the new season of our podcast, especially because I myself aspire to be an architect too. So could you also tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so as Samarth has mentioned, I'm Judith and I'm an architect by profession. So after I finished my 5 years of architecture school, I started this studio called Studio Makeshift.
Mhm.
So the thing is, we have to get a license after they can apply for a license after they graduate. So
Okay.
after I got my license, I started the Studio Makeshift.
Oh.
So yeah. So Studio Makeshift primarily deals with architecture projects, but somehow we've kind of come into interior design as well.
Okay.
So yeah, in architecture school we actually have 1 semester of interior design. So we learn that as well, and then we have like 10 semesters going on. So each semester is like very interesting. So we even had photography. So we learn a lot of things. So by the end of 5 years, some people kind of, get into a lot of different streams as well. Like, sorry, for example, graphic design, that's another stream that they get into. Yeah, so I really like architecture. So, so my studio deals with architecture and interior design. So we also do furniture design as well. Yeah.
Okay. And I think when you're talking earlier, you said that not a lot of people know what architecture is. So, being an architect is as well. So could you just tell us a little bit more about the profession as a whole?
Okay, so I'll just start by maybe explaining what an architect does. Okay, so an architect is basically a licensed professional who deals with planning and designing of buildings and structures as well. So it's not just buildings. Sometimes, we're involved in the design of bridges. So
Wow,
it could
yeah.
be structures. Yeah, but the thing is, we would have to work with a lot of collaborators. For example, if we were to design a bridge, then I would need to have a consultant like a structural engineer. Yeah, so we do. It's a job that kind of it's like a huge collaboration. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and yeah. So I mean, those who are aspiring to be architects, it's definitely a career that is very fulfilling and interesting.
Okay. So why exactly did you yourself choose to be an architect?
So this is a tricky question because it's been so long that I've even forgotten when I made that decision. But I think it was a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I think as a kid I was super interested in building stuff. So I used to play a lot with Lego, And there used to be something called mechanics. I don't know if you have that
Yeah, I
now.
still have. Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So stuff like that was like super interesting. So I used to like, for example, take my bicycle, kind of remove parts of it, try to put it back. Then
Uh,
I would like pester my dad to help me build a tree house, in the city. So yeah, so things like this kind of, I don't know. So maybe they kind of figured out that I like to build stuff, you
mm-hmm.
know. And I was also inclined towards arts. So I used to draw and sketch really well from a young age
Wow.
without any training. So they were like, okay, so she kind of does her art, she builds stuff, and also academics is a big part of architecture, I would say. So I think I did like math because you have to do a lot of math.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your head, especially,
Like the
yeah, you got to be like quick with area calculations and stuff, But I don't think you have to be like, a genius or something. You just need to have your basics. Yeah. So, yeah, so a combination of academics, art, and a lot of hands-on work, like practical stuff, like building models. You have seen those doll houses, right? Barbie's
yeah,
dream
yeah.
house. Yeah. So I used to do a lot of all that. So yeah, I think they were like, okay, maybe she'll be a good architect or something. So I eventually got into that. But there's an exam that we have to do to
Mm-hmm.
kind of get into architecture. Yeah, so maybe I'll get into that a bit later in your show.
Okay. So so what? So when you're growing up, did you have any other profession in mind, or did you think that you only wanted to be an architect?
No, I did have quite a few options open. I think I wanted to be an astrophysicist because I do like to do research and stuff. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
one thing. Then scientist, but I didn't know what kind of scientist.
Yeah.
Then at one point I wanted to be, I think, a fashion designer. But all of this kind of leads to a lot of thinking and creativity. So maybe that's where it stems from.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, yeah, like also, fashion design and all, it's also kind of related to architecture, all the designing and
Yeah,
all.
correct. Yeah. The process is quite similar, but the only thing is you're kind of structuring clothes. So you could call it an architect of clothes, or
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. So yeah, the process is similar. You start with a concept, you sketch out a few diagrams, then you have to kind of get it made. So
Yeah.
and once it's made, when you get to see what you've created, it feels really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what challenges do you face on a daily basis, being an architect and, interior designing as well, like you mentioned?
Yeah. Okay. So okay, first off, I would say, yeah, every job comes with its challenges.
True.
So every field, there's no perfect day, Some days are good, some days are bad. That's just how it is. So I think the challenges that I face, okay, firstly, so do you all know what a site is? A
Yeah.
site?
Yeah.
Okay,
Where it's being built.
yeah, the place where a building stands, or something, or where a building is going to be made is called a site. So I hope that's understood. Okay, so
Yeah.
the site could be challenging, okay, in terms of maybe it's small, maybe it's oddly shaped. So these are some site challenges that we need to overcome, um, and kind of produce the outcome that the client and the architect are hoping for. So that's one of the main things, client site constraints, as I would call it. Secondly, I think there's a lot of collaboration going on, so it's very important to have good people skills. So you
Yeah.
need to kind of keep the contractor on good terms with the client, and then you have to be kind of a mediator between a lot of different vendors and different consultants. So
Yeah.
that's also I mean, it's stressful, but for the outcome you have to do that. So that's another thing that is very important in architecture. What are the other things? Some of the other yeah, timelines. Timelines are very, very important because all these are like time-based problems. You have like 30 days, 45 days, maybe
Yeah.
60 days. Yeah. So each sector, like for example, a house would take longer to build than a retail space or a shop
Okay.
or a showroom or a studio, like a gym. So every site is different. Everywhere you don't get the same consultants, you have different consultants, so it's a lot of coordination. Okay, and all this has to be done within the stipulated time. you cannot, delay your projects. So one of the other main things is that you need to be very quick with decision making.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you need to have like very good decision making skills. So I think it comes with time because you will learn. It's not that on day one I knew everything, and I'm
Mm,
still learning. So it's like a continuous process where you keep learning every day.
okay. And what now that you talked about the challenges and things that you face on a daily basis, what are some of the positives on the other hand that come with being an architect?
Yeah, so you have to really focus on the positives because it's a very stressful job. So the positive things are firstly travel. You get to see a lot of places.
Yeah.
My projects have taken me to Sri Lanka and Thailand, Singapore. So it's really interesting because you keep traveling, and when you travel, you meet new people. So the consultants also are different,
Yeah, I
So
didn't
that's
actually know that. I thought that architecture, it would be like always in a one place. But I want to be an architect too, but I also want to do a job that involves a lot of traveling. And now that you mentioned it, I think that would be
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, so that was one of my main things. I don't know how I kind of found that out, but I knew that, I would get to travel a lot, and I was lucky enough to travel, and I still do travel a lot.
Okay.
So even within the country, sometimes I'm in Delhi. So there was one week where I just saw my home maybe like once or twice. That's it. So I was seeing the airport more than my house, which,
Oh,
yeah, it's really nice. I like it. I don't know if other people are, yeah. So, yeah, so it's fun. So travel is a big part of it. Secondly, you get to kind of interact with a lot of different people
mm,
from different parts of the world. Also within the country, you will find out that, different cities work differently. For example, in Bangalore, my the site laborers or workers are have a different demeanor compared to, Mumbai.
okay.
Okay, so people also vary from place to place. So yeah, it's been good. I see the positives outweigh the, cons of the profession. So the cons are basically the stress and the deadlines that come with the job.
True.
Yeah, it's a lot of liability as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've covered travel, collaboration. Yeah, and also you keep kind of upskilling yourself. So you kind of learn new skills
Mm,
and you have to keep yourself updated, which means that your brain is constantly, active, and that's a good thing. It's always a good thing.
yeah. Okay. And moving on to the next question. What do you think? What impact does your profession make onto the world? And this actually comes from. I think my question was focused towards the ikigai. If you've heard of it.
Yeah, Ikigai.
Like,
Yep. I have the book as well.
yeah. So that's so. I want to cover one aspect of it. So, what do you think? What impact does being an architect make to the world?
Okay, so the thing is, architects do have a very important role to play in society,
Mhm.
which I don't know if it comes through. So I think one of the main things is that we kind of shape the landscape of a city or a space,
Oh yeah.
right? Yeah. So even the skyline of maybe the New York skyline, right? All the skyscrapers and everything. So, I mean, those are iconic structures. So, we kind of, architects are actively involved in developing a city. Okay. So, that's one thing. As an urban planner, you can kind of plan the towns and cities as well. Okay. So, if you see, Bangalore has a radial development. So, that was actually planned by somebody, a team.
Okay.
Okay. So, after your 5 years of bachelor's in architecture, you can actually specialize in whatever you're interested in. So, for example, if someone is interested in city planning or town planning, then you can kind of do a master's in urban design and urban planning.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then you can like probably be a part of the government organizations that deal with town planning and city planning. So that's one way to do it. So architects do have like a huge influence on basically, see, as human beings, I think 80 to 90% of our time is spent indoors, right? So yeah, so the built environment, by built environment, I mean the buildings around us, they need to be, they need to kind of have a sense of well-being and a sense of, because we spend a lot of time, we need to feel good inside the structures, right? So
True.
yeah. So it's like a well thought out thing that architects do. But I don't know if people talk about this a lot. I think it's overlooked because we just take it for granted that there are buildings and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
you're
that's
talking a little about the different fields and kind of the different subparts like the urban planners. So
yeah.
could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, urban planners we spoke about. Yeah, secondly, we have a lot of monuments in the country, right?
Yeah. Mm.
So we have conservation architects. So we work on preserving monuments. So you can specialize in that. You can like study the history of architecture and
Oh,
then probably, yeah, and then specialize in preservation and conservation. So that's another way to go. So there's an organization called INTAC. So they deal with, restoring monuments to their former glory because you know how it is. They
yeah.
get, they get damaged due to weather conditions,
True.
so they have to keep maintaining those structures. So
Yeah.
that's,
Even in the school trip, we went to Belur, right? And then there, they have all those temples, and lots of people they stole the little figures of them. So they're still currently restoring the temple.
yeah, exactly. So what happens is these kind temples are in, remote places
Yeah.
where people are probably not aware of, the importance and the historical significance of stuff. So they kind of maybe just, I don't know, they don't know that it has to be maintained. So that's where these conservationists come in and then they kind of restore the monument.
Oh yeah.
So that's another way to do it. Then, of course, there are architects who get into interior design. Okay, so you can actually do a master's in interior design so that you can get an overall perspective. So I would say an architect has a bird's eye view of interior design. You get a bigger picture,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you're not just looking at the four walls within a space. You're looking at stuff beyond that. You're looking at the total environment. So I feel like the output is better because of a better understanding of the space as a whole. Okay. What else? Town planning, city planning. Yeah, I think these are some of the important. Oh yeah, landscape architecture is big.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, landscape architects, I think they are one of the highest paid architects right now.
Oh wow. So what do they do?
So they kind of plan out the landscape of a space. For example, you have a huge public park or
Mm-hmm.
some memorial. So they kind of plan where the so landscape is divided into hardscape and softscape. Hardscape are your pavements, your the seating, all of that, and the softscape are the plants. So you need to have a good understanding of the vegetation. What can you grow? You know how should it be maintained? So that's what landscape architects do. So they kind of come in as consultants, or some of them even kind of take on their own projects.
Okay.
So that's another way to specialize. Yeah.
So architecture. I think from this you said that it has lots of different subparts.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. And architectural photography is something that a lot of people get into. So as I mentioned before, we do have one semester of photography. So some people kind of gravitate towards that. It's quite interesting because architectural photography is very different from wildlife, nature. Different. It's very different from those kind of realms of photography. So that's another way to go. And I think our architectural photographers also kind of make a lot of money, I think. Okay. And architecture journalism. Okay. So these two can overlap. So journalism is when you are not actually practicing as an architect, you are just kind of documenting other people's work or writing about it. So if you like to research, if you like, yeah, to do a lot of reading and research on other projects, you can do that and write about it. So that's architecture journalism. So that's also a good field.
Yeah. So lots of things related to architecture too, right?
Yeah, lots of things. Even I think, have you seen museums?
Yeah.
Yeah, so people kind of art galleries, people kind of design those displays. So you can be like a set designer, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are the other kind of things that you can get into. So it's like a vast field with a lot of subcategories. Um, some
Yeah.
people even get into graphic design, branding. Yeah.
Okay. Um. So you've talked a lot about now the subparts of architecture, but what other professions do you get involved with? To design a space and to design anything.
Okay, that's again a lot of people that we have to coordinate with. Okay, so yeah, firstly we have, okay, as an architect, I'll tell you, I'll have to coordinate with a contractor,
Mm-hmm.
on a daily basis for work, because he's the one who kind of executes the project. He reads my drawings and he kind of um, implements it into the space.
Okay.
Yeah, so which means my drawings have to be very good for him to kind of have a seamless um, integration of that into the space. So
Yeah.
contractor is very important. Even the site workers, we need to kind of guide them at times. So it's nice to have a good rapport with everybody on site. Then we have an interior designer who kind of comes and gives us an overall, maybe the furnishing part of the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll probably consult you on what kind of fabric you need to use. Sometimes they even kind of tell you what kind of plants need to be there indoors.
Okay.
So yeah, and they kind of set the color palette of the space. So interior design is also an important part of a project overall. So sometimes the architect himself or herself takes up the interiors as well, so that you kind of have everything as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay, for example, you kind of, the site is empty, you give the drawings, you build the house, and then you kind of furnish the house. So sometimes we take up all of it, everything. Then site engineers. So for example, in your house, if I have to, yeah, so site engineer, what they do is they kind of give me a daily rundown of what has happened on site.
Okay.
I may not be able to visit the site every day because I have a lot of projects going on. So the site engineer does that on my behalf. So he will kind of make sure that everything is on track, on time. Nobody's wasting time on site. He's like, what do you say? He's like a coordinator or a manager on site. Okay, site engineer. Then I have my structural consultant. The structural consultant is very, very important. So, for example, you have a wall between your kitchen and dining area, and you want to take down the wall. Okay. So I cannot take it down without getting a sign off from a structural consultant, because it could be dangerous, right? Because maybe the slab, your ceiling is supported by that wall. So
Okay.
so I need that consultant, the structural guy, to come in and tell me, okay, it's okay to remove this wall. There's no danger to anyone who's living here. And then he signs off, and then I can go ahead and tell the contractor to remove that wall. So
Okay.
yeah, that's not a call that the architect should take by himself or herself. So it's always good to have multiple consultants. Then you electrical, plumbing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So there's one consultant called an MEP consultant, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So
Okay.
he kind of comes in and so we give a schematic of how we want the pipes to run. So he's going to tell us, okay, if this is going to work or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, it's like a whole bunch of people who come together, work together, and then give a good output. Sometimes your clients are also professionals, right? Because they come from different fields. So for example, if I'm dealing with a government agency, then my client is a government
Okay.
entity. Yeah. Sometimes, mostly I have entrepreneurs coming in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So different types of clients also. Sometimes it's private clients who just want a residence. Yeah. So yeah, these are some of the important aspects of the whole process. And these people are like key. I need these people to get my project done.
Mm. Okay. And a little bonus question, related to the other professions too. I've seen this all over the internet. Like lots of people, they're a little confused about the difference between engineers and architects.
Okay.
So could you just talk about that a little more? What different jobs they do?
Okay. So architects are not engineers and vice versa. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, from a degree standpoint, in India at least, we architecture is a 5 year course and engineering is a 4 year course. Okay.
Okay.
That's like the first thing I can think of. Secondly, we are actively involved in concepts, designing, sketching, and all of that, but they are more technical.
Okay.
They deal a lot more with the technicality of things. We kind of have to juggle with a mixture of everything. So there's design, there's technical stuff, but to implement the technical stuff, we do need the engineers.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, an architects, like I mentioned, you have to apply for a license. So, you are not allowed to design or construct anything without a license. Okay. So, that's why um, interior design is different from architecture. That's another thing where people get confused. Interior designers don't necessarily need a license to build. We do have a license to build because, building involves a lot of liability as well. So we need to have our number and
Yeah.
everything to sign off on drawings. Otherwise, we cannot. If we don't have a license, then and if you are a defaulter, you get debarred. You cannot practice if your
Oh,
license is taken away. Yeah. So that's the main thing. And engineers, I think a civil engineer gets a license if I'm not wrong. But the other engineers, I don't think that there's a license. So I think they are just kind of they learn the technical aspects of everything. For
okay.
example, now I have a plumbing drawing to do, right?
Yeah.
So the engineer will know the diameter of the pipes,
Okay.
things like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just have to kind of indicate where I need it, but I do need to have a working knowledge of that as well.
Okay. Yeah. And moving on to the next question. So I think a little bit more about your project. So what is the most fun or challenging project that you've had to work on?
Okay, so I'll talk about the fun project and then I'll talk about the challenging project.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the I think the most fun I've had on a project is for this brand called the Entertainment Store. Have you heard of it?
I think yeah.
It's there on Church Street in Bangalore.
Yeah, I think I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were opening their store in Mumbai,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it was a blast to work on the project because we had to create. We were involved in creating the props for Harry Potter,
Oh
and yeah, and for sitcoms like Friends. Have you watched Friends? I don't know. I mean,
no.
yeah, your age group is
Yeah.
so, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. So different sitcoms like The Big Bang Theory and Star Wars,
Yeah.
yeah, Star Wars and Tintin,
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, Spider-Man was kind of hanging upside down at the entrance of the store. So that was a fun project because we got to collaborate with a lot of artists, local artists from this from Mumbai. So that was nice. And we made this huge installation of Marvel characters and DC. So I think there was Iron Man and Deadpool
Wow.
on yeah, so the I think the space was like 25 feet wide, so we had to create like a huge mural, and it had to be lifted off the ground and placed on top. So
Wow.
that was really fun. It was fun to work because the outcome looked so good. The process was a bit stressful, but then it was really nice. So that's one project that I really liked. And plus the novelty of traveling always, back and forth from Bangalore to Mumbai, that was also fun. Yeah. And I got to collaborate with a great graphic designer. So you tend to learn a lot from different professionals as well. That was a fun project. Challenging, I would say. So at the beginning of Studio Makeshift, I had to travel to Sri Lanka all by myself for a project and deal with a different site engineer who I've never met and different set of workers. So that was because I've never seen them before. So it was like a bit challenging for me to get them to maybe listen to what I'm saying, those kind of things. And then the weather also, it just kept raining. So
But yeah, when we
nothing,
went to Sri Lanka too, it was really on and off.
yeah. So it takes time for cement to dry. And then the rains just didn't stop. And I think there was like a lot of delay and there's a lot of water everywhere. So yeah, I feel like that was like one challenging project.
Yeah, and I think if you Dana, you mentioned that I think if you have to travel to a different country for any architecture, because they're going to be people that you've never met, and then I think that too involves the people skills, not only talking to the customers, but also I think talking to the people who you're working with too, right?
Exactly, yeah, because they don't know you,
Yeah,
nor do you know them. So it's yeah, so because it takes time to get to know people as well. That's
yeah,
why also when you're working in one place, you tend to get a good contractor and you're okay with how he works or she works. So you get to understand each other and then it's easier to work. But that's not always the case because your projects could be anywhere. Today it's in India, tomorrow it could be somewhere else. So you need to kind of have a good equation with everyone that you meet.
yeah. And I think you've talked about this a little already, but what are the educational qualifications that you need to be an architect?
Okay.
Yep, sorry, just I think it just glitched. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so coming to educational qualifications, so up to your 10th grade, everything's, kind of a standard format, I think. Then your 11th and 12th grade, so you need to either pursue science or commerce.
Okay.
So if you kind of get into arts, I don't think that you can qualify for the aptitude test. So as far as I know, it's you have to kind of take up science or commerce, and then after your 12th grade, so you need to make sure that you do well in your 12th grade, and then you have this exam called the NATA exam. That's NATA. It's called the National Aptitude Test for Architecture. Okay, so it's an aptitude, general aptitude, and sketching as well. So people kind of prep for this. So you need to take a good maybe 6 months at least minimum to kind of prep for the NATA entrance exam. So once you do that, you get your scores. I think it's out of 200.
Oh
So
wow.
you need to do really well. Yeah, yeah. You need to do pretty well. I think you need to get, I'm not sure about now, but yeah, you need to do quite well to get into architecture after that. So then I think they take into consideration your 12th grades and your NATA score, and then they kind of then if you have a good score and a cumulative of both of these, then you can get into a good architecture school.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's quite a complicated process, like you mentioned. And I think you said that you also had to do the photography semester and then interior design semesters too, right? When you're working in architecture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a part of your course. So when you're doing your 5 years, you have 10 semesters. That's two
Okay.
semesters per year. Okay, so you get different electives in different semesters. So one of the semesters we had photography. I think in my 5th semester we had interior design, which was quite interesting.
Okay.
So yeah, the NATA exam is not that complicated. It's just that you need to, I mean, how are you okay with sketching someone? Do you like to
Yeah,
sketch?
I like to sketch draw too.
Okay, that's great. So then it should be a piece of cake for you. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I mean, it's just that you need to kind of be aware of the dates of the exam so that you can kind of prep beforehand and then you can give your exam.
Yeah. And I think you've also been into architecture for quite a long time, right? So as part of that, I think, do you notice that from when you were first an architect and now, do you notice that the client's demands have changed?
So yeah, that's an interesting question. But the thing is, the client's demands are never the same. So it's always a variable. I don't think I've come across any two clients who have the same demands, because each project comes with its own requirements, and each person is unique. So whatever they say is different from the other. So in terms of the demands, if you're asking me, I would say the only demand that is increased today is that they want very quick outputs. People don't have patience these days as much as they used to have before. So I feel that because everything is very fast paced now, so I think they expect a faster output as opposed to maybe like a couple of years back.
Okay. Yeah. And how has AI, because it's really relevant now, how has AI particularly helped your job?
Yeah, so the discussion about AI has been going on for a while. So I'll just give you an example. So you know that architecture involves a certain use of some software, right?
Yeah.
For example, there's AutoCAD and there's SketchUp. Okay, these are like some commonly used tools. Okay, so back in the day, like many maybe 2 3 decades ago, people had to hand draft everything. Like architects really had to sit and draw because there were no software tools,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So from there, so when the software came in, everybody was like, okay, what's going to happen now? But the only thing that software did was kind of make our lives easier. So it's just a tool to help us kind of convey our ideas. So you don't have to be great at sketching, even if you're like average, decent, you can kind of do your drawings on software, right? So
Yeah.
same way, in a similar fashion, AI is kind of, I look at it as a tool to kind of help us give a better output. Okay, so for example, AR and VR, right? Augmented reality, virtual reality kind of helps me to kind of showcase my project to the client before it's actually built. So that's a great thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of bridges the gap between, okay, this is not what I asked for. So because they're seeing it beforehand, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 3D tools to kind of show the drawings, but maybe it doesn't come through as well as it would come out in virtual reality or augmented reality.
True.
So that's a so I think AI is a great tool. And for example, like there are some clients who say, okay, this is one floor plan. Can you show us five other options, right?
Okay.
Five other combinations. So on a human level, of course, it takes time. Even if I give it to five people, right?
Yeah.
I still need to kind of fine tune it because it has to be a certain way. But if I use an AI tool, I can maybe get those outputs in a shorter span of time.
Okay.
So that's how I look at AI. It's kind of helping me do my job maybe faster. So instead of five projects, I can take on 10 projects.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So, what is your dream project, if you have any?
I do have a dream project, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So, yeah. So you've heard of the talks of moving to Mars and things like that. Have you heard of Elon Musk?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it would be great to be a part of something that involves maybe habitation on Mars or something like that. I think he is actively kind of working with architects to come up with those pods,
Yeah.
living pods, yeah, and things like that. So I think that would be something really different because I mean there's only so much we can do on planet Earth, so maybe this will be something like very different, or even on the moon, like a base or something. So that would be because everything is going to be different. And everything I've learned is going to be, I'll have to kind of put it aside and learn something new about another environment.
True.
So I think that would be really something to do.
It would be really fun, to explore and live on space.
Exactly. I
But
may not get to live there, but maybe I can at least like experience the simulation or something.
yeah, but I think
Yeah.
you have to take other factors too, like the lack of oxygen
Yeah.
that there
Yeah.
is.
Exactly. So it's going to be a totally new set of requirements, lot of constraints. Yeah. So it would make you think a lot more.
Yeah. So, what kind of resources, like books or games, do you recommend to someone like me, who's interested in architecture?
Okay, so I think there are some really good books for kids, okay, to get into architecture. Maybe I can share the links and you can probably
Yeah.
link it, okay? So I think actually a book called Architecture for Teens. I think it's for someone who's looking for an introduction to architecture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe I can just send you the links.
Okay.
Also, growing up, I watched a lot of Bob the Builder. That helped me
Okay.
understand construction and things like that. So, yeah, that was, I mean, it made me quite interested in the process of construction, right?
Yeah.
I didn't take up, I'm not a builder per se, but yeah, I know how they work and it's very like interesting, the different tools and on construction sites, you will actually see those vehicles and stuff,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, the cement mixer, the
Yeah.
rollers. Yeah, so that was fun. Have you played Minecraft?
Yeah. I was playing it before as well.
Yeah, so Minecraft is great. I feel like it's a sandbox tool and you
Yeah.
can use it. Yeah, so that's really nice because I think on SketchUp, which is a tool for 3D modeling, we build stuff, right? So Minecraft, I think, is a good introduction to somebody who wants to build things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get really creative with Minecraft. So I would say keep playing Minecraft if you want to be an architect. Yeah. What else? I think these are some resources that you can see. Plus, I think YouTube has some good shows, but of course, with the consent of your parents, please only post that, watch these shows. It's called Tiny House Nation, where they
Oh
create
yeah.
tiny houses. Yeah, yeah, they create tiny houses. I think that's a really good show because it teaches you how to create beautiful spaces within a really small space.
Yeah, I was, also on Netflix, like, I've seen lots of architecture-based shows, like also interior designing a lot mostly, and
Okay.
renovations of the tiny homes and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a show called Abstract. Have you watched that?
No.
On Netflix. Okay, so Abstract has one episode on architecture, so you should definitely watch that. So
Yeah.
yeah, she's a professor at MIT, and she kind of develops a lot of really great stuff.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out too.
yeah.
Okay. And finally, what is one message that you want to share to everybody who's listening?
Okay, yeah. So I would say that for people who want to pursue architecture, I think it's a very demanding profession, but it's also very fulfilling. You feel like you've achieved something when you see the things that you put on paper come to life.
Yeah.
It's a totally different feeling. You feel very happy when you see the other people kind of use it, and kind of feel happy within the space that you've created. I think that's a really good feeling to have. Having said that, you need to also, once a project is done, I think you need to kind of move on to your next project. So get inspired, feel happy about this, and then move on to the next one. And I think, yeah, so it's a very fulfilling profession. So, and you need to it'll keep you on your toes. Every day is interesting. You have like something going on. Maybe something's going wrong. Maybe something's going right. It's always like, there's always something interesting going on. Okay, so there's never a dull day, I would say. And of course, the travel. I love the travel. So it's either travel for work or it's travel after work, because you're so stressed out after your project, right? Once it's done, you're so happy that you want to just go and maybe relax somewhere and then get inspired again and then come back and then do something new. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's, what do you think after listening to all this? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, before, I want to be an architect, of course. So I've studied a lot about architecture and all. But, talking to an architect has really helped me learn more about the whole process of architecture, actually going in depth into it, like everybody who's involved in it, and some of the more like what you have to do to become an architect and a little more of nuances of being an architect. So I think that's been really helpful.
That's nice. I'm happy that you see that. I mean, I'm happy that it's made you realize that it's a nice profession, right? It's quite interesting, and you'll be always surrounded by a lot of interesting people.
Yeah.
Right? It's always like you're always in the creative community.
Okay.
That's another thing. Yeah.
Sure. So, well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.